Good morning, Cashiers.
Cashiers Canine Connection.
Good morning, Cashiers, and happy St. Patrick's Day. My name is Alissa, and this is my lovely assistant, Dona. We are a mountain dog in Cashiers, North Carolina, here this morning with the podcast, Cashiers Canine Connection. We're here to help connect Cashiers canine lovers in a conversation about dog behavior. Right now, today is March 17th. We're in the midst of an unprecedented time in America and the world with the COVID-19 outbreak pandemic. Life is changing rapidly for all of us. I don't think anybody will come out of this thing untouched, and people's lives are changing as of today, yesterday, last week. Wouldn't you say, Dona, things are very unpredictable? And
yeah, each day it's unfolding a little more and the situation develops. It's definitely something that is evolving each day into something new.
Yes, definitely trying times right now. We have noticed big time firsthand just at our business. Last week we were full throttle bracing for our spring season to start when things really rev up for us. It went from full throttle on Friday to a dead stop on Monday. Since we board dogs, that usually requires a person to be traveling away from home. There's a lot of travel restrictions. I'm glad that people are following those so that we could get a hold on this outbreak. But unfortunately, that's going to change a lot of people's lives, and we're seeing it very quickly. Not sure how it's going to unfold, but only time will tell.
Exactly. All right, so today we were going to jump into a topic. This episode is about the ways that we communicate with our pet dogs. We're going to talk about ways that we communicate with dogs verbally and non-verbally, and what communication method dogs best understand when we're training with them. The first question is, a lot of people talk to their dogs. How much do they actually understand?
Dogs can definitely develop a large vocabulary if you worked with them enough. You can watch YouTube videos of dogs knowing 1,000-word vocabularies. Certainly does take a lot of training and a lot of repeating, but they do understand it. The problem I see on a day-to-day basis is usually we're using words just at the wrong time with unbalanced dogs who are not in a good state of mind. Words can hinder us in those times rather than help us, and we do it unknowingly because we are verbal by nature as humans. Dogs are not verbal, so they use other means to speak with each other, mainly spatial pressure, physical pressure, touching each other. They do bark at each other, so there is some noise involved there, but mainly it's by pressure they speak.
But I do think there's a need to clarify, because I have heard confusion about this and different ideas about this. When dogs are barking and growling, are they communicating semantically? Like, is there a language there?
So you're trying to say, like, do they have vocabulary inside their barks? Like each bark means a certain thing. Maybe more like the tone of the bark or the situation in which they're using the bark, but does it like actually mean a certain, like we could tie it to a word in English? No. They're complex creatures, yes, and they are emotional. Some people think that dogs aren't emotional, or they don't get sad or depressed, thing like that. I disagree with that. I do believe dogs are emotional and they are a little complex. I don't think they're as complex as a human, but really the more you break it down and simplify it with a dog, the better they understand things. So pitch, maybe a high-pitched bark or a cry means something, pain, fear, excitement, and then maybe like a low-pitched growl could also mean fear, but could mean aggression. Depends on the body language of the dog. Even more is what you'd have to watch while they're making the noise to see what they're really talking about.
What is the role of tone of voice when we try to train our dogs and communicate with them? High-pitched voice, low-pitched voice.
So tone of voice means more than words, especially when you're starting out training a dog. A certain word means nothing because the dog doesn't. There's no meaning attached to it yet. If you wanted a dog to sit, essentially you could call it spaghetti. You saying it X number of times and giving a reward every time he sits is going to teach him that spaghetti means sit. But back to the question of tone, usually when we're talking to our dogs, we talk in a higher pitched tone or an excited tone. And it does more to kind of hinder many times what we want from the dog, and it causes arousal when we're trying to get him in a state of calm. So we do more to reverse what we're really trying to get out of the dog. Talking in a nice, calm, matter-of-fact, monotone voice to the dogs, especially a dog who is aroused, and most dogs are, is going to keep him in a much better place and state of mind and help him succeed. Timing is everything in training. I don't want people to take away from this like that you can't talk to your dog or the dog just doesn't understand what you're saying, so don't say anything, because that's definitely not what I'm saying. What I really want to explain is that timing is everything. So there is a time to talk to your dog, but if you're trying to get him to behave like in a certain moment, or he's overly aroused, or he's bouncing all over the place, like that would be the time to take all words away, basically, and use pressures, some kind of pressure, leash pressure, spatial pressure, to get him to calm. A balanced dog, a dog in a good state of mind, is a dog we can talk to. If it starts arousing him and you'll see that, and you start causing failure in behavior, or the behavior's worsening, or he's failing to do what you asked him to do, then the words are, again, they're causing that, the arousal, it's causing arousal, and you'd want to take it away again. So there's definitely times dogs relax on the floor, he's in a good state of mind, you had a good day together, a nice structured day with some exercise, you want to pet your dog, good boy, stuff like that. Like that's a good time when the dog's in a good state of mind. But when we're like trying to walk into the vet's office and the dog is like all stressed or tight or anxious, and it's okay, we're just going to the vet, like that's causing more stress, anxiety, and arousal, and you're kind of rewarding or making the dog, putting the dog in a worse place, and we're not trying to do that. We're doing it unknowingly. We're trying to talk to our dogs like they're humans, basically. But if we talk to them more with pressure, guidance, leash pressure, that's what they really understand. That's what they really need in those moments.
Clear tone of voice. If you raise that tone, then you can raise the emotional, the arousal state of the dog. Okay, a lot of people intentionally or unintentionally will use hand signals and body movement when they're training their dog with obedience commands. Can you talk about how influential the nonverbal cues can be when we're training the dogs?
They can be more influential than words, because dogs do learn by body language and pressure. If you're waving your hand at the dog, a lot of times waving a hand towards the dog will get him to move back, or moving your hand to the ground might get him to lay down. The most important part about the hand movements is that you keep them consistent. If you're trying to train a hand movement to a command, is to do the same thing every time. You'll have more success using body movement first before words, and then tie a word to it later. Hand movements are not necessary, of course, except if the dog is deaf, and you wouldn't be able to train a word to the command later. But we actually train without a word or a hand movement at first, just using facial pressure or leash guidance. But definitely hand movements can be helpful, but you would have to pay attention to actually being consistent with doing the same ones every time, so as not to confuse the dog.
And another thing I've seen with the hand signals is that then your friend comes over and they say, does your dog know sit? And then they are trying to get your dog to sit by snapping at it, because that's how they trained their dog at home.
Yeah.
And now your dog doesn't know sit at all.
Exactly.
So consistency, and you talked about spatial pressure, body positioning. That plays a huge role in dog communication, how they communicate with each other. How can we use our body positioning to communicate with dogs?
That's actually an easier way for a dog to understand what you're asking him to do. We can use the most basic example would be a dog in a crate. Put him in the crate, open the door and stand in front of it, dog may try to bolt out, and you can close the door. So you're putting spatial pressure on the dog there without using any words, without saying no, stop, or putting your hand up into a stop motion. We're just simply closing the door as the dog tries to nose out of the crate, telling him very simple with spatial pressure in dog language, because dogs learn best by pressure, that we don't want them to come out of the crate right now. It may take several times, 20 times, it could, depending on the dog, of us closing that door as the dog tries to bolt out. And then after that, we can actually open the door. The dog has more of an understanding what we want from him at that point, and we can stand in front of the cage. So now we're using our bodies to tell him, with spatial pressure, to tell him to stay in the crate. We could start moving backwards and moving forwards again when he tries to bolt out. And now he's going to understand that we still want him to stay in the crate using our bodies. There's a lot of instances where you can use body pressure, blocking a dog. If you watch a dog play, just watch their body language with each other. They go into play bows, like come play with me, and then they might run at a dog and try to block it from a ball. Like they don't have words, so they're using pressure constantly to speak with each other. And as you pay attention to that, you'll notice it and pick up on it more, like what they're actually saying to each other.
There's another common problem where we will use spatial pressure to get dogs to not jump on us. So when they come into our space, one of the ways that we can start to teach dogs, hey, don't jump up on me, would be to move into their spatial pressure. Can you talk how that looks like?
Yeah, like I've seen a lot of people will like walk into a dog and put a knee into them. Is that what you're talking about? Spatial pressure? Yeah. That can inhibit a jump sometimes, but not always. Sometimes it can be more of it depends on the personality of the dog. Like, let's fight. Like, let's, bump chests and get aggressive with each other and it could cause arousal. I've seen that happen many times, or a dog will go in to start clawing on you now and having fun, because they wrestle like that with each other too. So that's not our most effective way to stop jumping, but it certainly does stop some dogs from jumping.
Now let's talk about rewards. We use rewards to train dogs. The most common reward is food. What food rewards do you suggest for dogs that are food motivated?
Our preferred food method is their actual kibble. And the real reason behind that is because the training treats can get fattening, upset stomachs maybe. They're rich in calories sometimes. Surely you can buy low calorie ones, but it's just more simple to feed, have the dog work for his food throughout the day. When you're actively training a dog, instead of putting a bowl of food down in front of him in the morning, you can put it in a training pouch on your hip, or a plastic bag, or in your pocket, and just give a kibble at a time for doing something you wanted as reward. And this actually, it helps the dog actually have a job, like he has work through the day, and there's more of a purpose to getting his food, kind of like they do in the wild. Like, I'm not trying to call dogs wild anymore because they're far from it. They're very domesticated now, but they used to walk all day and look for food and hunt for food, and that's part of their makeup. And now you're putting a job back into the dog. Now they're going to work for their food. It can be easier to get a dog to learn and do something when they're hungry and looking to get paid or rewarded.
Can you describe how affection can be used as a reward for training dogs?
Yeah, so a lot of dogs aren't food motivated and could care less about the food. I've definitely seen instances of, after a couple of days of using the kibble to feed the dogs will get hungry enough to start taking treat as a reward, but they're still not super excited about it. A lot of times we do have to use affection for the dogs that could care less about food. A simple pat on the head or good boy, is enough to give a nice reward to a dog.
What about environment access as a reward? We hear about this sometimes. Access to the environment as a training reward.
I don't think a dog will really tie. So say, for example, you ask the dog to sit, he sat, and now you say, good boy, and let him run the yard. I don't think that's they're going to tie that access to the yard into I sat. And especially if you're doing that every time, it's not very efficient for training. It's now you got to get the dog back and start over. I think that's more of a long-term thing. Get the dog by training into a good state of mind, and then allow more access to different parts of the house or more freedom outside or something. And then you judge whether that was too much by the dog's behavior. So if you see some backsliding in the dog's behavior, like he was doing really well, he stopped jumping on people, he's listening to everything I said, and then you say, okay, I'm going to let you upstairs in the house now. You were always tied off to the downstairs area. Let's let you upstairs. Well, you let him upstairs, and he chewed up a slipper and peed on the carpet, and they're like, okay, that was too much freedom. Take away some of that environment and go back to the basics. You always have to remember that in training. Like if something starts slipping, the results aren't where you want them to be, just take a step back and go back to kindergarten. Start from the beginning again and get them back. They need help. They need guidance.
This brings us to talking about pressure. We always talk about pressure in balance training, pressure on, pressure off theory. What kind of pressure are we talking about when we say dogs learn best by pressure?
Several different outlets of pressure. Like we said, spatial pressure, that's not even touching the dog. There's no physical contact there, but you could use your body to move a dog somewhere. Sometimes when we have a dog, like many times little puppies who come for the first time to mountain dog, and the owners can relate to this. Their big game at home, it's time to come inside. What does the dog do? Goes into a play bow, starts backing up, starts running circles around the yard like, come and catch me. Because they don't know yet, like an adult dog, that there's a routine. It's time to go in. It's more just puppies are all play. You could actually use your arms, move towards the dog to get him into a space where you could catch him. You can extend your arms to make yourself bigger. You're putting spatial pressure on that dog to get him into a space where you can actually stop his movement without ever touching the dog, and then you can catch him, and bring him inside. So that's one form of pressure. Spatial pressure can be used in many different ways without ever touching the dog. There's also the prong collar. You can do it extremely lightly to guide a dog. He's feeling more pressure when you're pulling him the way you want him to go, reacts to it, goes with you because he feels pressure. Dogs learn by pressure. E-collar pressure is the same. It doesn't close around the neck, but there's stimulation here. Can be very light stimulation, something like a tingle that a human can't even feel, but it is pressure enough for the dog to say, somebody's talking to me here. Somebody's asking me to do something.
All the kinds of collars and harnesses that we use put some form of pressure on some area of the dog's body. A lot of people, they use harnesses because they notice that the flat buckle collars or the nylon collars, those will put so much pressure on the front of a dog that, yes. And you're not communicating with that dog at all, and you're thinking something like, this dog is just choking itself. So then people switch to a harness and they end up getting pulled. And we have several customers who have actually broken bones by being pulled down into ditches or down the mountain by a dog. Can you just talk about the fact that all these different products exist and why we chose the one that we choose?
Yes, definitely. So that's a very good point that you touched on, because that seems to be over and over again. We see the same progression. The flat buckle collar, which is like your normal collar with a buckle that almost every dog wears. That's the first thing. Like usually we get a puppy, we get a leash and a collar. There's no problem with it. Dogs need collars. They have name tags, everything like that. Some dogs can walk great. Some dogs can learn great on a flat buckle collar. There's nothing wrong with them. I don't want to say get rid of them or anything like that, because they really work on some easy dogs. But when you get a dog, like most dogs and most clients who come to us with issues, just all these behaviors that are really common in dogs, you can't speak to a dog with a flat buckle collar. The pressure is simply across the front of the neck. It's not telling the dog anything. All it's doing is putting a bunch of pressure like right on the trachea, that would be where it could actually push into it and stop breathing. It doesn't tell the dog to stop. Dogs don't tie that in like, oh, I can't breathe, I better stop pulling. They just continue to pull until they choke. And the owners feel bad naturally. They don't want their dog to choke and cough and all that. So they move to a harness where there's no pressure on the trachea, but it gives the dog all the strength in the world to pull now. Harnesses are built and made to pull. They're on the strongest part of the body. Dog can walk forward and pull you even better now. So now you took away the danger for the dog on choking him, and you put the danger on you. You gave the dog a ton of power to pull you down the road, and now like zero control. The dog's got all the control with the harness. So what we like to use is a prong collar, because a prong collar actually communicates with the dog. And when the dog pulls against the prong collar, it closes evenly. It adds even pressure all the way around the neck, and the prongs sit off of the dog. There's not one point anywhere on the neck that's getting all of the pressure at one point, as where a flat buckle collar is getting all of the pressure whichever way the dog's pulling. So if he's pulling right, he's getting all the pressure, on one side or the other, or if he's pulling straight, he's going to get all the pressure here. Most of the time they're just pulling straight ahead and choking themselves. Same with the choke collar. It's going to choke down and actually choke the dog. But with the prong, the way it's built, it's going to close evenly all the way around with the prong sitting off of the skin, so the dog cannot choke. And at the same time, the pressure tells the dog immediately, don't do that. It's uncomfortable. And they stop. It's humane, way more humane. There's no choking involved, and the dog understands by use of pressure.
And it really is that fast. If you are committed to getting that technique down, leash pulling stopped one day. Definitely. No more leash pulling.
Yeah, and the relationship, the dog finally gets a aha moment, like, oh, you didn't want me to pull? Thanks for telling me. The person gets oh, that's all I had to say for you not to pull? Cool. And now we have a fun walk together. Life gets better. It's a beautiful thing.
Just seeing the amazed look on people's face and like the hope, like they come back to Mountain Dog and they have all these great stories of things that they could actually take their dog or their dogs to go do. So we have a video on YouTube that goes all into why we chose the exact prong collars that we chose. They're super high quality. So we talked briefly about the e-collar pressure. Can you talk about using the e-collar for pressure on, pressure off training? Because I think a lot of the times when they use the e-collar, maybe to correct like this bad behavior, like maybe they got a dog that barks all the time, or they want to keep the dog in the yard instead of chasing something. They think, okay, you shock it and it's done. But there's a lot of other things you can do with e-collars too. Like there's a lot of this pressure on, pressure off idea.
Certainly. Yeah. So an e-collar can be used right out of the box. That's usually that's what people relate the e-collar or the shock collar is, to stop unwanted behavior, to correct a dog. And it can easily be used right out of the box, and you can stop stuff super quick. Training stuff, which some people don't know that you can even train good stuff with an e-collar, but there's a whole other side to them of communication. It takes much longer to do. You're not just pushing a button and shocking a dog to do stuff you want it to do. Never you do that. That's never a way to train a dog. You can stop a dog with just pushing a button right out of the box, but train a dog to do things you want it to do. It's a long process. The best way to do it is to actually layer it over the prong collar. So you teach the dog step by step what you want it to do with the prong collars with pressure. So we would ask it to sit using pressure from the prong collar. Then we layer the e-collar over that when he fully understand what we wanted him to do on the prong collar. So we replace the pressure of the prong over time with the e-collar. Very low levels, that depending on the dog's perception level. Some dogs feel it like super duper low, some a little bit higher, but it's still at levels like most humans can't feel. It's tingling to a dog. You would hold the pressure with the button. It would be tingle, 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 tingle. You're asking him to sit using the prong to help him sit. And then as soon as his butt hits the ground, you release pressure. So that's pressure on, pressure off. And over time, after doing that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, you take away the tingle, teach the voice command, and you're talking to the dog with just asking him to sit.
All training is about that repetitions. It always has to come back to the repetitions. All these communication things, it's about, we're trying to figure out how to be so clear with our dogs. And you can't take away the value of repetition in training.
At the minimum with an e-collar, we can stop a dog from doing bad stuff, like dangerous stuff, jumping on people, getting on the counter and stealing food, getting into the garbage, eating the cat poop, like dangerous stuff that can make a dog really sick, hurt another person, kill a dog. Like we can stop stuff like really fast with an e-collar. At the minimum, that's what we can do with it. But at the max, the value it can bring to you and your dog's life is a total off-leash freedom in any situation. Like the harder you work at it, the more you put into it, the more you can teach with this, the more the dog will understand. You're communicating to him constantly with this beautiful tool with no leash, and the world is his oyster. I mean, there's no better relationship you could have with your dog once you have clear communication and the dog understands what you want. And that's the ultimate tool to provide clear communication with the dog.
Love it. We talked about the pressure and the tools that we use in our training. We established how to reward, the pitch of our voice, body movements. We talked about being clear with our dogs. We're laying the groundwork right now. In the future, we're going to talk about the foundations of dog training. We're going to go even more into these tools that we use, and we're going to talk about all these really awesome skills. We're going to go into it more and more, and I'm so excited. So we do have this Sidewalk Initiative going on, and people really responded so well to this. A lot of people want to get involved. Several people already have gotten involved and made donations. So let's just briefly talk about what's going on with the Sidewalk in our community and what people can do to get involved right now.
Yes, we're super excited about the Sidewalk Initiative. Cashiers has been in need of sidewalks for many, many, many years, in my opinion. The Chamber of Commerce, other organizations have been pushing for sidewalks. We have been unable to get state funding, mostly due to our, being rural. The cities get more of the funding first, which is understandable. There's more people there. So there's a group, Visions Cashiers, who's taken this into their own hands to try to get this thing rolling, and are asking community members to sponsor their own section of sidewalks. So if there's business owners that can build the sidewalk just in front of their business, and then we're hoping to connect it all the way through Cashiers. The UCBI Bank is, as far as I know, the first business that's already established that's going to be adding new sidewalks in front of it, and we're hoping that's gonna that piqued my attention to build Mountain Dog's sidewalks. So we don't have the funds on hand, and we're asking for donations from anybody who can donate. We have some pictures of dogs going up in our lobby in Mountain Dog, and we're asking that you can sponsor your dog's picture to go up on the wall. Half of the proceeds will go to the Sidewalk Initiative, and we'll be helping to build that.
Those are for sale. The spot on the wall, your dog's picture, and the other half, the donation, all together is $24. But we've had people donating whatever they can give, and it's really nice to see how everybody just comes together, and we all get so excited when we think about taking our dogs on the walk on the sidewalk. And It's going to be so safe.
It is. We're gonna. As soon as we're connected, I hope it's sooner than later. We're going to try to spur other businesses to hopefully want to do this, so that we can get connected all the way to the Village Green and beyond, and be able to go on pack walks. And we'll start sponsoring some pack walks where our clients can come bring their dog, and we'll all walk together. Now it's impossible. There's no shoulder on the road, even to walk on the side of the road. It's super dangerous, especially when you have a dog with you. So this is like really, really exciting, and we're just going to keep pushing forward until our sidewalk's built, and then we're going to continue the push to try to get other people to follow suit.
A huge thank you to those who have already donated. Also, we're still running the special where any of our clients who follow us on YouTube, all you have to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel, comment your dog's name on one of our videos so we'll know who our subscribers are, and then you can come in and claim a free t-shirt. We have Cashiers, Our Roots Run Deep t-shirts, and we're so excited to give out more free ones. A lot of people have already come and claimed them. So we got a lot of great things happening right now.
Yeah, a lot of positive things, and that's where I think we need to be, especially in this time that the world's going through. Anything you can do positive or think positive is gonna bring us out of this in a better place.
Yeah, and I'll see you next week, and we'll record another one of these as things develop.
Definitely. Good talking to you, Donna.
Awesome.
Good morning, Cashiers.
Cashiers Canine Connection.